He built Russia into an empire. He defeated the Mongol successor states that had terrorized Eastern Europe for 2 centuries. He wrote poetry. He reformed the legal code. He expanded Russian territory by over 1 million square miles. And then one evening, in a single moment of rage, he picked up his iron-tipped staff and struck his own son across the temple. His son died 3 days later. Ivan IV of Russia, the man history would call the Terrible, never recovered. He descended into grief, into guilt, and into a paranoia so complete that it reshaped an entire nation. And historians have spent 500 years trying to figure out, was he a monster? Or was he something far more complicated than that? In this video, I'm going to show you 3 sides of Ivan the Terrible that most people never see. First, the childhood that created him. Because what happened to Ivan before he was 10 years old would have broken almost anyone. Second, the ruler he became. The military genius. The legal reformer. The man who genuinely modernized Russia. And third, the night everything unraveled. The single act of violence that he could never undo, and never forgave himself for. By the end of this video, you'll understand why historians can't agree on who Ivan really was. And you might not be able to agree either. To understand Ivan, you have to start at the beginning. And the beginning is bleak. Ivan was born in 1530 to Grand Prince Vasily III of Moscow and his wife Elena. He was a prince. He was celebrated. He had every advantage a child of the 16th century could have. And then, when Ivan was 3 years old, his father died. His mother Elena became regent. She was capable, political, and ruthless, which in 16th century Russia was the only way to survive. She held power for 5 years. And then she died too. Ivan was 8 years old. The cause of death? Almost certainly poison. The culprits? The boyars, the Russian noble families who had been waiting for exactly this moment to seize control. What followed was 7 years that historians describe as a nightmare. The boyars used young Ivan as a puppet, a child prince with a title but no power. They fought each other for influence, arrested and executed each other in front of him, humiliated him publicly, and reportedly let him go hungry while they feasted in his own palace. Ivan watched. And he remembered. Every person who ever humiliated him as a child, he would eventually remember their name. In 1547, at 17 years old, Ivan IV did something no Russian ruler had ever done before. He had himself crowned Tsar, not prince, not Grand Duke. Tsar. A title derived from Caesar. A claim not just to Russia, but to the lineage of Rome itself. And for the first decade of his reign, the claim looked justified. Ivan defeated the Kazan Khanate, a Mongol successor state that had raided Russian lands for generations. He absorbed the Astrakhan Khanate. He pushed Russian borders east toward Siberia. He established the first Russian printing press. He reformed the legal code. He created the Zemsky Sobor, a kind of early representative assembly. He opened Russian trade with England. By the mid-1550s, Ivan the Terrible was not called terrible because he was cruel. In Old Russian, the word Grozny, translated as terrible, meant formidable. Awe-inspiring. Like a force of nature. Ivan the Formidable. Ivan the Awe-inspiring. That's who he was for the first 15 years of his rule. But then, in 1560, his wife Anastasia died. Ivan believed she was poisoned. By the boyars. The same families who had stolen his childhood. Modern forensic analysis of Anastasia's remains found elevated levels of mercury and lead. She may have actually been poisoned. Whether it was real or imagined, Ivan's grief curdled into something darker. The paranoia. Always there, forged in those 7 childhood years, broke open. What came next is known as the Oprichnina. Ivan divided Russia into 2 zones. One was governed normally. The other, the Oprichnina, he ruled directly, with a private army of men dressed in black, riding black horses, carrying a dog's head and a broom on their saddles. The dog's head meant they would sniff out treason. The broom meant they would sweep it away. They were Russia's first secret police. What followed was a reign of terror. Thousands of boyars, merchants, and clergy were executed. Entire cities were massacred, most infamously Novgorod, where Ivan suspected the city planned to defect to Poland. He personally supervised the killings. Contemporary accounts describe 5 weeks of systematic murder. Estimates range from 2,000 to 60,000 dead. 60,000 people. In 5 weeks. Ivan spent his nights writing lists of names, people he had executed, and sending them to monasteries with instructions to pray for their souls. He genuinely believed he would be judged for what he had done. He was terrified of God's verdict. He was also unable to stop. And then, in November 1581, it happened. Ivan argued with his son and heir, Ivan Ivanovich. The argument was about his son's pregnant wife. Ivan disapproved of how she dressed. His son defended her. The argument escalated. And Ivan the Terrible picked up his iron-tipped staff and struck his son across the temple. Ivan Ivanovich died 3 days later. The Tsarevich. The heir. The future of everything Ivan had built. Ivan held his son's body and wept. Contemporary witnesses said he tore at his own hair and beard. He tried to abdicate. His counselors refused to let him. He lived for 3 more years. In those years, according to his own confessions, he prayed for death. Ivan the Terrible died in 1584, 3 years after killing his son, while playing chess, according to contemporary accounts. He had ruled Russia for 51 years. He left behind a Russia that was larger, more centralized, and more connected to Europe than the one he inherited. He also left behind a legacy of political terror that would define Russian governance for centuries. So who was he? The historian Robert Payne called him the most complex man ever to rule Russia. Others have called him a textbook case of trauma-induced psychopathy. Some modern Russian historians consider him a hero, a nation builder who did what had to be done. What's undeniable is this: Ivan the Terrible was shaped by forces that began long before he ever had a choice. A father who died. A mother who was poisoned. 7 years as a puppet in his own palace. A wife he may have watched be murdered. The question historians keep coming back to isn't, was he evil? That's too simple. The question is, at what point does a person become the thing that was done to them? And at what point do they choose to become something else entirely? Ivan the Terrible never found that point. If this kind of history is what you're looking for, rulers who defied simple labels, empires that collapsed in ways no one predicted, moments that history textbooks glossed over, this channel is built for exactly that. New video every week. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And the next one involves a secret that a dead civilization buried so well that archaeologists didn't find it for 2,000 years. History is stranger than you think.